It is Sunday on Raid Shadow Legends, but you knew that. Now, it's no well-kept secret that Doom Tower is classed as finished content in this game. It's not been updated for a very long time, and it's very unlikely that it ever will be. People thought there might be a fourth rotation of Doom Tower at some point, and then when Cursed City came along, that was kind of the other content where you face several sets of 5 champions, and there may or may not be limitations, and you get a repeated set of monthly rewards. So there's that. And yeah, there's a few stages I'm stuck on, like most players. Now, while I have collected all the fragments for all of the legendaries at this point, I was hardly one of the first people to do it, but it is what it is. There are many people who don't have them yet, or have been looking at them all, and are unsure, are these worth the effort? Well, I wouldn't really say worth the effort, because you're probably going to do it in a way, because once you get it all over and done with, then you can get extra resources off these stages that can be used for the forge. But we'll go through them anyway. In the order that you get them, although I might get it slightly wrong, so correct me if it's that much of an issue. So, beginning with Fear the Tomb Angel, or at least Fear, I don't really know. She was buffed twice, I believe, because when she first came out, she had 90 speed for some complete unknown reason, and this skill would remove all the hex debuffs off all enemies afterwards for completely unknown reasons. And then they buffed her again to reduce her cooldowns by a turn each, and also give her an aura. Now, this champion is one that looks pretty decent on paper, and in practice, it's kind of hard to explain how she's a bit underwhelming. I think the first issue is that this by itself is too slow to apply Hex on all enemies to get maximum amp out of this. And while she does have some form of self-defense, she can't increase her own attack, and ends up being pretty reliant on, I would say, Mithril Lifebane first, and then any other Hex or increased attack second. And this passive is a bit weird with the rest of her kits, because this doesn't check accuracy, these don't need it, and it's fine for PvE content where enemies won't have the most resistance, but this is definitely not an arena champion nowadays, and you'll find that anywhere else, she's kind of a bit reliant on you having someone who's going to reset her cooldown to just go Mithril at A2, Fear at A2, kill everything apart from Green Affinity champions, and do it again. Next is urost for Soul Cage. Now, he's an actual HP legendary, because his HP stat is higher than an attack legendary from a long while ago. It was still never really explained why she has an abnormally high HP stat, but I'm sure there's some reasoning. Anyway, back to urost. He was kind of designed as this poison specialist who had ways to force the enemy to attack him to get poisoned, and then it would scale up this skill. Although he was pretty much a CC champion support instead of a HP, so this didn't hit particularly hard, and the condition on this is like, it should just give him like 15% or something, as 1% at a time is kind of petty. This skill is fine, strength and protection is pretty good, and overall he's pretty decent, although he does take quite a lot of books, 15 in total. Now, the main place I do see him is being used for soloing Bug off the Scarab King in Doom Tower. Now, as much as it seems a little bit weird that you have a Doom Tower legendary who then helps you clear Doom Tower a bit faster and easier, but that's just how things design sometimes. Now, if you are using him with this, you do not need to book him. Mine's not booked whatsoever. And otherwise, it's just places where you want someone who's relatively tanky to keep your team alive. And this can work on occasion, but you're probably not going to be using him with these, although it was a novel effort. Apart from that, he goes pretty widely unused, purely just because of a book requirement, really. And next is Gomlok Skyhide. Now, as much as I would say that for any exclusive legendary in this game, where adding them to your collection also adds them to the pool of summonable souls, which makes the chance of you getting someone that you want out of it just that slightly less likely. Gomlok is one where you have to summon him whether you like it or not, because if you don't summon him, you don't get Roman 2. It's as simple as that. Now, like Fear, this champion has been buffed. I don't think we changed this. This previously only stole 2 buffs from a target, and this would only give him a shield equal to 15% of his max HP, and I don't think they've changed anything else on him. And Gomlok, more than any, is where I'm going to mention the main issue with Doom Tower legendaries and how you can only get them in a set order. Unless you are a particularly active spender and active player in this game, you are not going to full clear Doom Tower and all secret rooms in the first month of playing, unless you are really good in terms of roster and gear. And if it gets to that point where you bought a bunch of primal shards early and now you have mythicals to throw at various content, you're not going to appreciate a champion like this, who is 4-turn cooldown, AoE decreased defense, which also decreases to meet by 10%. Yeah, thanks. And then has a conditional weaken if he's full HP, which already makes him worse than someone like Lydia, who you will probably end up getting before Gomlok regardless, because even if you are full clearing every month, it is about a 12-month time gate. It might be 11, correct me if I'm wrong. And if you really have that many champions, you will get Lydia before 11 months. And she's going to do this decreased defense, we can think much better, which leaves him without really too many places to be used. And they haven't really tried to buff any of the Doom Tower legendaries ever since, which kind of felt like this disingenuous, oh, we buffed him once, people didn't use him, I guess that means people don't want us to buff Doom Tower legendaries anymore, and then they just didn't, which is a shame, really. So next is in the same faction and Fall of the Destroyer. Now, this champion at first I thought was kind of just generic the arena attacker who didn't have a great deal of good matchups, and honestly he still doesn't, but he's kind of picked up a lot of speed in Hydra. Now, I know I've said before about champion with debuffs or something is this a Hydra champion, but this one, due to his passive, is actually someone who really appreciates a much longer fight, because he'll be able to scale this up really quickly, and with Merciless set, he can just be using these over and over instead of his rather lackluster A1. Now, outside of Hydra or just like Demon Lord, I'd say don't use this guy in Arena, because as I said, he doesn't have a great deal of good matchups and his self-defense is conditional and not the best. But I would say get him out of a portal just for the odd chance that you do get a 5-star or a 6-star for him. Put some good merciless on him, have ways to reduce his cooldowns, and he's going to put out a lot of damage there. Not more so than the Trunder Furball composition, but yeah, this is one I would somewhat recommend, even though I haven't played them myself because I don't have a soul for him. Next is, I believe it's Basafa. Now, Basafa is kind of funny for the first point of this. Then look at the HP stats. Got it memorized. Okay, here's Jarek. Much more HP. Bucks up to about the same chance. So yeah, good legendary from there, but obviously Basafa does a bit more outside of that. That's different. I wouldn't say better because Jarek and Basafa have different roles in the team, but yeah. So the main thing with this champion is when enemy is revived, they get stunned for a turn. Now this would be very good against Sun Wukong as he keeps coming back over and over and over. Except nowadays there's the issue where you try and debuff someone. So they also have a 4-turn cooldown AoE stun. Although nowadays we have a champion who does this same skill much, much better. And you have a weird conditional shield. It should just do all of these. I don't know why this is a conditional. And again, if you are really stuck on certain limited content, then yeah, the champion is fine. But it's not really the most valid argument in the world because any champion is good if you're literally not allowed to use anything else at all. So apart from that, you're probably not going to use them. And again, this is the 5th or the 6th one, so you are well over a year and a half in at this point, most likely, and you will have better options than this. And then there is the Soul of the Seal. Now, I kind of like this guy. I'd like him more if he was just a shard legendary you could get early on, because his skill set is actually pretty decent in terms of full heal with extra turn, 3-turn AoE true feed with attack, and this is okay. I think this should just do this regardless. I don't know why this is a condition again. And this could use a buff, I feel. Like, do a bit more for Demon Spawn apart from just crit damage, but I did use this guy in live arena alongside a Demon Spawn composition that had Kendra Farm, Duchess, occasionally Prince Kaima or Hefrak, although that was before everyone and their mother had Harima, so nowadays I would not recommend any kind of Demon Spawn strategy of this alone. Now, his stats are a little bit undertuned. I think he could use a buff, as I mentioned, but apart from how late you get him, I quite like him. He's the only one out of them that I've actually summoned and booked, and I would recommend him for a few areas, but he's hardly going to be your first priority when he can eat up to 12 bucks to end up getting this. And then that moves us on to the last 3. Now, these last 3 are where I feel Plarium kind of went, oh, they're 3 legendaries. You're probably at a point where, unless they're insanely strong, you're not going to use them. And we probably shouldn't put insanely strong champions in a 2-year plus time gate, because it's going to be unfair to anyone who has not been playing the game for over 2 years. But there's a bit of middle ground, I'd say. And that middle ground was clearly not met with this guy. These reviews aren't a lie. He's pretty miserable. So starting off, we have this, which isn't even 100% chance. It's a 70. Okay, great. We have Introduction to Block Buffs. Now, mentioning this champion was added to the game a long while ago as a bit of controversy. I say controversy because it's been smokescreened now like a lot of what Plarium has done. Personally, I blame other people who just forget about things, but I am just one guy, and even Heidi Boy and Scratchy Boy could loudly complain about something and nothing would change, so what chance do I have? Right? And his A2 he was cited as an introduction to the block buffs debuffs, even though he was a login legendary that took you well over half a year to even be able to get fragments for. So if you missed this introduction to block buffs, then here you have Chromax Moonblood who does the same thing. Why this is a single target and not an AoE, I don't know, but I'm saying apparently they didn't want him to be that overpowered, so yeah, they've succeeded there because he's pretty terrible. And then we have a provoke on a 4-turn cooldown. Now, on a 3-turn, this would be really good. On a 3-turn, it's a 3-turn, what am I saying? As an AoE, this would be very good in, you guessed it, Hydra! Unfortunately, no. They just said no. And then we have a Hex, which by itself does nothing, isn't guaranteed, and in terms of when I'm attacked, I put Hex on you, we have the Orc Beastmaster here, who is very, very far from Mordor. So, yeah. Unless you are absolutely desperate, you aren't using this champion at all. I mean, he doesn't even look very good now, does he? Just a bit of purple particle effects everywhere, and he looks fed up. I'd be fed up if I was him. But wait, it gets worse, but not much worse. To Grunger. Now, first thing I mention about Grunger is this skill. He removes buffs from a single target on a 3-turn cooldown. Got this memorized. Faction, Affinity. Yeah. So we're not off to a good start in that regard, because sometimes power creep goes in reverse. So he really doesn't do much of anything. Okay, AoE HP burn for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown. We have so many champions in the game who do this on a 3-turn cooldown and do something else, but apparently you wait over 2 years and this is what you'll give him. But don't worry, because he gives himself a bit of turn meter. That makes things so much better. And then we have this anti-Tormin, anti-Frostbiter passive, but if you're over 2 years in the game, then I think Frostbiter is the least of your concerns. And there's also ways of Tormin in the game. It's called block debuffs or polymorph, or just not dice rolling against a champion who passive is visible from space. So I would say how they should buff this guy, but it's not happening, so let's just move on to the last one, shall we? Which is Ginro the Stork. Now, this champion had very brief application in the game, back when the arena defense meta had Venus, Cupidus, and Necro the Great, and Stunskin wasn't added to the game yet, because this would ignore the block debuffs that Necro would put on Cupidus, and firmly stop Mr. Lovesword himself dead in his tracks. But then Stoneskin happened, so yeah, there it goes. Then we have this, which, again, read this. Got it memorized. Yeah. he's not doing very good. And then we have the issues where increase his defense. That's great. Except it resets when he take a turn. Why? Just let it cap out at something like 100%. It doesn't even say how much increase his defense by. Why doesn't it do that? How much increase by? 5? 10? Someone tell us, please. Anyway, so he doesn't even keep his defense. Not that he hits particularly hard in the first place when he has no mitigation shred. And then, this seems good, right? Except, this active effect doesn't benefit from this, because it's not an attack, it's an 4-turn cooldown, and it only provokes people under increased attack. So, yeah. Again, people might say, oh, he's good in Cursed City. Well, let's be honest, if there's any stages on Cursed City that you're getting stuck on, the ones where you're allowed to use Void Legendaries is probably not them. So, yeah, he's pretty firmly the worst Void Legendary in the game by a long shot, ever since they are buffing Jingwon as of the next patch, where, like your Carver Scourge, they are just homogenizing his skill set and removing conditionals that had no reason to ever exist. But we're not talking about Jingwon, we're talking about Ginro the Stork, although we're not going to do it that much longer because, yeah, he's a pretty miserable champ nowadays and you'll have no use for him whatsoever. Oh well. It's a free legendary, so you have no reason to complain. Right? Right? Yeah. Anyway, that's all of them. If it made half of them seem like a waste of resources, then yeah. They kind of are. That's all. See ya.